And what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It is your boy Cheap Lose with part two. Well, it's technically four. Part two of a five-part tier list series. Today, we're going to be ranking the best shooting guards in NBA 2K22, my team. Now, look, the shooting guard position, I would say, is kind of a weird position. This year specifically, because 2K has kind of made a renewed focus on the small forward position. So the primary shooting guard is a little bit of a meh position, but there's still some absolute gems and some overpowered cards to be had here. So, parameters. If you guys haven't watched the point guard tier list already, I highly suggest you do that. Obviously, it's on my channel. I like views. Go watch it. So, S tier, unquestionable best cards in the game. A tier, just a shade under S tier. I will explain. They definitely have some flaws, and we'll talk about those. B tier, very, very good cards. A lot of the guys in the community are going to be using guys like in B tier, specifically at the shooting guard position, if not the point guard position, small forward, etc. C tier, still usable cards, but they're just not quite as good as the B tier guys. D tier, they still have at least some value in some fashion, of which I will talk about. And then F tier guys who should absolutely move on from as soon as possible. You might even like a card in F tier. You might like a card in D tier. I don't really think it's necessarily indicative of a card being bad. It's just overall you can do better. You know what I mean? That's why I don't have trash tier as of yet. Trash tier doesn't rear its ugly head until about season 4 and 5 usually. So I also try to rank cards between both current gen and next gen. And I also try to rank cards without badge additions because any card badged up is good. Just look at RCA using Marcus Smart as his starting point guard in qualifiers. You know what I mean? Marcus Smart is fire. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying. You could easily take a budget card with the right badge additions and make him better than a top tier card just by putting in the effort and the time and the badges. So let's get started. Dunktober Gary Harris. C tier. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of this card. For some reason, he just feels super sluggish. I don't understand what it is. He's also not a great dunker and not the greatest ball handler, but he's relatively still solid. Some people still love this card. I would put him towards the top of C tier for, at the end. Troy Daniels. Oh, yeah. You have seen this correctly. Troy Daniels is the Mystic set as a whole was an incredibly good set. I mean, pretty much the entire set was fire, except for how they did my boy Dino Raja, but he's still a great defender, blocker, and rebounder, so whatever, I guess. Troy Daniels, I think, is easily the most slept on card in the entirety of the Mystic set. Like, he's got a wet three-pointer. He moves pretty well. Only 6'4", I think. He might be 6'5", I'm not sure. Pretty decent sized player build. Altogether, he's better. I would say he's better than Gary Harris, 100%. Anthony Simons. He came out day one, so he is a little bit outdated, but he's still like low C tier, in my opinion. Bingo Smith, B. Now, I don't think he's going to be too high up in B tier, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't even use him in my lineup anymore, which is sad because he's one of my favorite cards in the game, but there's just guys who have come out at this point that are just better in general. So, that being said, Bingo is still usable. If you're somebody who has added badges to Bingo or somebody who just really likes Bingo Smith still, he's still a usable card. Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal's still good. I mean, he was my shooting guard for a long period of time. Granted, I don't think he's necessarily meta anymore at this point. He's still got Ray Allen base. He can still move pretty well. Like, he deserves to be in like low to mid C tier, I think. Chris Duarte. I think I'm saying that right. I don't know. I'm the worst person in regards to pronouncing names. A friend of mine who lives in Colorado literally looks exactly like Chris Duarte, and it makes me laugh every single time I see him. He is, by all metrics, one of the best Sapphire cards in the game. And yes, I would say he's better than Troy Daniels. He's great. And I mean, for a free card, 2K gave us an absolute gem of a free card. Adrian Dantley. I'll be honest, I don't particularly like this card that much, but he's still like C tier. He dunks really well. He's actually not the worst shooter in the world. He plays okay defense. If you guys watch my point guard tier list, and how I was talking about Louis Dampier and a couple other guys, how 2K always releases these guys at the wrong time. They'll give us like Adrian Dantley, Louis Dampier, cards of that nature. They'll give them to us at the end of the year when we have the most overpowered cards imaginable. This year, 2K has done a really good job of giving us these guys early on so we can actually experience like how good they are on their own, like outside of the bubble of God tier, like April cards. You know what I mean? And Dantley's not really the greatest. I don't really think he's ever going to be necessarily the greatest in 2K based on his jump shot and SIGs and stuff, but he's significantly better than he typically is. I mean, typically when we get an Adrian Dantley card, he's like F tier, if not trash. So the fact that he's in C tier is a win. Mitch Richmond. You could argue he's better than Bingo Smith if you want. I really don't care. It doesn't really matter which one of these guys is ranked where. They're both B tier, and they're both probably going to end up around the same place. OJ Mayo. OJ Mayo is really good. If you give him clamps, he's incredible. He has base 49, which is the same release like Tim Hardaway Jr. and J.R. Smith when we do get J.R. this year on quick, and it's incredibly good. OJ Mayo's fire. I cannot wait until we get like good OJ Mayo cards later on in the year. I'll be really excited. I always like OJ Mayo and Michael Beasley in game. Clyde Drexler. The Flash Clyde Drexler would probably go right here too. I think A tier makes sense for him. He's so much better than all the B tier guys. I'm sure someone's going to disagree with that take, but I think Flash and NBA 75 Clyde Drexler deserve to be an A tier. They are absolutely incredible shooting guards. Corey Maggette. There's a lot of C tier shooting guards, I'll be honest. They've released so many lower overall shooting guards. Corey Maggette's decent, but yeah, I mean, C tier makes sense. D'Angelo Russell, same thing. I'd put him like right by Bradley Beal. Like, no defense, solid offensively. These are just season 1 cards. It's not really much that they can do, you know what I mean? Hal Greer. If this was the point guard tier list, I'd have him like, I wouldn't say higher up in A tier, but like mid B tier. But at the shooting guard position, I would say that he's probably low B tier. He's good though, base 22, plays good defense, kind of a stocky player build, just a little bit small. Klay Thompson. S. On current gen, he still will switch onto the center, but he actually plays defense well enough that it's not the worst thing that's ever happened. He just moves so well. A dribbling Klay has always been fake. It will always be fake. And like, that's just how it is. It's no surprise he was on every single qualifying team. I mean, you know what I mean? Danny Ainge, F. Realistically, he's probably D tier, but I hate this card so much. I'm going to put him in F. It's my list. I can do what I want. Daryl Griffith. I mean, he's slightly better than Adrian Dantley. I would say he's better than D'Lo too. He's probably like this. I think he's okay. It's just a lifetime agenda from season 1. David Thompson is horrible. Like, if you like David Thompson, that's fine. He's not quite F tier. He brings enough to the table where I think D tier makes sense. He's just not good. They never give David Thompson the shine he desires. Or not that desires, deserves. David Thompson was an electric NBA scorer, and they can just never get him right in 2K. I don't know what it is. Like, look up David Thompson's career statistics from his prime. Look up if there's any footage of him. He was incredible when he played in the NBA, and for some reason in 2K, he's just always cheeks. I don't understand. Del Curry. Yeah, I mean, pretty much right by OJ Mayo, Troy Daniels. Like, this, which one of these 3 guys do you prefer over the other ones really comes down to jump shot. Like, that's literally it. DeMar DeRozan. Yeah, he can't shoot, but he's good at everything else. So I would put him like right here. Desmond Mason, he's basically just the worst version of what DeMar DeRozan brings to your team, essentially. He can shoot the 3 a little bit better, but that's about it. He has the same release as OJ Mayo, just on normal timing. It's pretty easy to green. Devin Booker. B tier. Yeah, I would say B. I think his other pink diamond is slightly better, but he's still good. Richie Guerin. I mean, yeah, C. He's okay. I like Richie Guerin in game, but this one's just not that great. Lou Dort. I would throw Lou Dort by Gary Harris. I actually prefer Lou Dort over Gary Harris. I would take him over Del Curry too because of his defense. Troy Daniels is good because he can lower overall with him, and OJ Mayo plays competent enough defense. I mean, he's overall maybe better than Chris Duarte. I just really like Duarte. Kyle Korver. There's a lot of sharpshooters in this area of C tier. I would give the advantage to Lou Dort, Troy Daniels, OJ, and Duarte because they can all move a little bit better than Kyle Korver or play defense. Kyle Korver really doesn't bring that to your team, but he is like a pure sharpshooter. Dunktober Donovan Mitchell, B tier. Like, he's actually still really good. This card held up significantly better than I thought he would. And honestly, if he could play point guard, I think he would have held up even better than that. Drazen Petrovic. He is the best card in B tier as of right now. I am being dead serious. Drazen is so good. His card art is super bright to the point where it almost hurts my eyes. But Drazen is incredibly good. Like, I'm about to sell my James Harden and just use Drazen from this point forward. Duncan Robinson, I mean, he's okay. Like, C. He's a decent lower overall card, 6'7", decent height. He can get any badge you want to put on him. He only has a couple badge slots, but he's similar to Kyle Korver. He's a little bit more athletic. He can dunk and stuff like that, so maybe I'll throw him higher. But at the same time, he's so horrendous on the defensive end. He can't really dribble either, which kind of nullifies his ability to dunk. You know what I mean? Dwayne Wade, I would still throw him in B tier, but low B tier. If he could shoot a little bit better, I think that he would be a card that I would put higher. But I still think he's good, though. He's just not elite. Dylan Windler, he's actually my favorite card out of all these like sharpshooting C tier guys. If I'm being honest, I don't know. He's a Klay Thompson clone essentially, and I just really like Dylan Windler. It's the weirdest thing though, because when I used Klay Thompson, like, I wasn't the greenest with him, but for some reason, Dylan Windler, I just like don't miss with this card. Eddie Jones, A. I know he's a budget card, so I know people are not going to agree with this take, but Eddie Jones is legitimately one of the best shooting guards in this game. Clyde Drexler is better. Klay Thompson is most certainly better, but Eddie Jones should not be as good as he is. He can't get range and stuff, which I think does kind of hurt his value overall. But at this stage, most of us are running in our starting five at least a couple guys without range. You know what I mean? So it's not the biggest detriment. And Eddie Jones has an easy time jump shot. He gets some of the most steals out of any small forward or shooting guard in this game. He can dribble, he can shoot, he can attack the rim. He's just altogether great. Evan Fournier, I mean, he's outdated, but I would put him in C tier. This Evan Fournier I would put towards the bottom of B tier, though. He's actually really solid. Like, if he gets an Evo tonight, he'll actually be good. I don't think he'll go into, like, A tier, because I still think Eddie Jones does everything that Evan Fournier does, just a little bit better. But I think if he gets that Evo and can like attack the rim a little bit, I would put him towards the top of B tier. Honestly, this card's pretty good. D'Lo, as much as I like D'Lo, he brings you absolutely nothing defensively. Like, his defensive stats are okay, but he can get like absolutely no defensive badges. I would still probably put him in B tier though for how good he is offensively, but he'll be at the bottom of B tier if he is. So I'm gonna keep him at the top of C tier for now. Otis Birdsong is just outdated. Emmanuel Quickly, I like this card a lot. I know people don't. He has a dynamic duo that I enjoy using. Oh, my nemesis has returned. Jalen Green. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, I would put him in C tier. I know people always... Oh, God. It makes me nervous to put Jalen Green in C tier after the response I received last year. But yes, if you badge your Jalen Green up, sure, he's B tier or whatever. I don't care. Realistically, he's C tier. He's okay this year. Once we get a high tier Jalen Green, he'll be great. But that's not the case right now. If he had base 22, I'd rank him higher. Flash Harden. Flash Harden is still really good. I would actually put him like right here. I would say he's better than Mitch Richmond. I know that's not popular either, but I really think he is. NBA 75 James Harden would be S tier, and I think Mystic would probably be around A tier because of the badges you can and can't, give him, etc. But I think Harden is worse than Klay Thompson to a certain extent. Harden makes more contested whites than anyone in this game and is honestly infuriating. Harden's just altogether super good this year. And look, the reason that is, for those of you who are unaware, it's because the first Harden that came out was a glitched defensive Harden, okay? Why is this important? Because 2K has to kind of up the ante on specific cards when they release, newer cards. So because this was the first James Harden they dropped, every James Harden from this point forward has to play defense, or else people would just continue to use this one and not spend money on packs for this one. It's the same phenomenon we saw with John Stockton last year when they released glitched Stockton. that dunked. After that, every John Stockton had to boom. So every James Harden we see this year is going to play at least competent level defenses now. Jason Richardson, as much as I like this card, I have to be realistic. He's like C tier. I'd put him like right here. Mine's a little bit badged up, or it was before I sold it, so I might put him higher than this, but this is kind of where I think you should be. Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown's still A tier. He's still one of the best 3-and-D cards in this entire game. You still saw people qualifying with him for a reason. Jaylen Brown's fire. I think it's really hard to rank the A tier guys because they all are like kind of similar. I think Clyde Drexler is the most well balanced out of all of the A tier guys because he can do anything, and essentially whatever you want him to do, he can do. Jaylen Brown's still not the greatest like dribbler. He's not the best like 3-point hunter and stuff like that. I mean, neither is Drexler to a certain extent. It's hard to really rank these guys within A tier. It's too much personal preference. Stack Daddy, D. Jim Paxson, D. I don't think anyone's fighting me on that. Joe Harris, just so many 3-and-D snipers out here in C tier. I wouldn't even call them snipers at this part. I would call them snipers. I wouldn't even call them 3-and-D guys, just 3-point shooters. Troy Daniels, Kyle Korver, Del Curry, Joe Harris, like Gary Harris plays some defense, but he's still like a 3-and-D guy. Duncan Robinson, Bradley Beal. You see the trend. Jordan Clarkson. I like Jordan Clarkson. I'd put him like C tier, towards the top. He's really good. He plays better at point guard, but I really wish he would have got the Evo. If he would have got that Evo, I think he'd be a lot better. Jordan Poole. He's probably going to be the worst card in B tier, but he still deserves to be B tier. Yes, I am saying he's better. No, he's not really better than D'Angelo Russell, I don't think. He's an excellent budget card. I just don't know if he deserves to be in B tier. The thing with Jordan Poole is, if he is in a tier, D'Angelo Russell should be in that tier too. So I'm going to have to make that decision later. Josh Giddey, he's all right. He looks like he's in a Midwest emo band, but he hoops at a decent level. Junior Bridgman, I like Junior Bridgman, but he's still probably F tier. Brian Winters is D tier. He's just outdated. Kelly Oubre Jr. Oubre is actually fire. I would put him in like B tier. If not higher, I might actually put him higher. He's actually really good. Shockingly, he was just too expensive. Now that his price has come down a little bit, I would recommend him to people. Cade, this one kind of hurts, but I'd put him in like C tier, kind of lower, by like Duncan. He came out day one. Another sniper for C tier, Kevin Huerter. Huerter's good. I mean, he's a Tyler Hero clone. He just doesn't dribble as well, so I'd put him like right over here by like Kyle Korver. I think Korver's better personally. It just depends which jump shot you like. Kobe Bean Bryant, B tier. He's a little bit outdated. You know, the Dunktober guys are fine, but he's just, you need so many badge additions to make Kobe great, though he is incredibly well-rounded. If you upgrade all of his badges, I would say he's probably like A tier. I would say he's A tier still. Yeah, I think so. He's not worth the price when you can get the same level of production from like Eddie Jones or Jaylen Brown for significantly less MT. But I think Dunktober Kobe's still up there in A tier. Kobe cards are incredibly good the last couple of years, so I would say he's still A tier. He's just not worth the price. LaMelo Ball, C, like lower C tier somewhere. I think he's still decent enough to be ahead of Daryl Griffith. He's okay. Latrell Sprewell. Sprewell's actually pretty good. I'll put him ahead of Hal Greer in B tier. I'm going to go ahead and move D'Lo and Jordan Poole up. I think they do deserve to be there. They're offense only specialists, but they're so much better than the guys in C tier. I feel like they deserve to be up. Rip Hamilton. Hey, he's still really good. He's just not worth locking in for at all. He wasn't at the time and he's not now, but he's still an excellent 3-and-D card. I can't say for certain he's really better than Jaylen Brown at this point, but I think he's close enough. He's either slightly better or at the same level that I think they deserve to be at the same tier, kind of right next to each other. But Rip a little bit ahead of Jaylen Brown. Kobe and Eddie Jones, yeah, I would probably swap like that. Lou Dort. Lou Dort, I legitimately think is one of the best cards in B tier. Like, Lou Dort is a 3-and-D monster, and he can also boom too. He's just small at 6'3". That's really the only issue. Moments Devin Booker. On next gen, he has this step back that makes him almost unstoppable. And I would say on next gen exclusively, he'd be A tier, but I think B tier makes sense for him. If you put clamps on him, he's possibly like in the A tier realm somewhere, probably towards the end. But I think B tier makes sense for Devin Booker. Luka Doncic goes in here in C tier. He's okay. Manu's terrible. D. Marcus Smart. I'm dead serious. I think he's A tier. He's so good. He is so good. Like, he's so incredibly good. Even at the shooting guard position, he's so good. I have to put him in A tier. I don't care. Marquise Johnson, low on C tier, but C tier with like DeMar DeRozan and Danley. I think that makes sense for him. Michael Cooper, I like a lot. I would put him like over here. He's just outdated. When we get a new Michael Cooper card, I'm going to be ecstatic. Michael Jordan. I like Jordan, but I still think like he's B tier. He plays excellent defense. He dunks over everybody. He can shoot a little bit, but I think B tier makes sense for him. I'd probably put him at the top of B tier. I still like MJ a lot. He's just way too expensive. Monte Ellis, this hurts my soul, but I have to rank Monte low in C tier. Poor buddy. You didn't have to experience that. Ray Allen, another no defense sniper. So he's got Ray Allen base. So I guess like C tier, but that's about it. Ricky Pierce. Yeah, Ricky Pierce is actually worse than Danny Ainge. As much as I hate Danny Ainge, like Ricky Pierce is the worst card on this list. Ron Boone. Ron Boone's decent, C tier. I would put him towards the top of C tier. Like, he's actually pretty good. I might even put him in low B, actually. Like, Ron Boone gets slept on a lot, but this card was really nice. He plays better at the point guard position, but he's still good. Terry Rozier, he's incredible. It's just at the shooting guard, he's horrible. Like, D'Lo, Jordan Poole, and Ron Boone can all run the shooting guard to a certain extent. Not great, but they can. Terry Rozier cannot run the shooting guard. As a point guard, he's probably a B tier point guard, but as a shooting guard, he's like the top of C tier. Tyler Hero. Yeah, C tier as well, towards the top. Yes, he is better than Jalen Green, Jordan Clarkson, OJ Mayo, Troy Daniels, Kyle Korver, Kevin Huerter. Yeah. Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton's decent. I mean, C tier. He has the worst load up animations off the catch and shoot that I've seen in the game this year, but he's still decent. If you use him as a primary ball handler, he's pretty good. Off the quick stop, he's decent, shooting threes. Zach LaVine. I would put Zach LaVine right here in B tier. I think that makes sense for him. He's decent, all offense, no defense whatsoever, but he's decent. You could argue Hal Greer or Dwayne Wade's better if you want. I think right here makes sense for him, though. As always, it has been your boy Cheap Ludes. Let me know what you think of the list down in the comments below or during the live chat. Not entirely sure. I will be back with more content later. I will be streaming on Twitch live tonight. I will also be dropping the small forward tier list and the power forward tier list and the center tier list over the next couple days, so stay tuned for that. And as always, have a good day. Like this video, subscribe, dog. Peace.